the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Monday night in Holy Week is one of my favorite services. It's when we begin that rhythm that Jesus had during his last days. I think if I thought about it too deeply, I would think that tonight it would be a Jewish Sunday night. Okay, so the day after the worship day. So this is 6 days before the Passover. So the Passover was the day before, and now 6 days before the next Passover is where we are. And Jesus has begun his pattern of going into Jerusalem. Okay, so down in terms of elevation, but up in terms of a spiritual place, because it is always up to Jerusalem. Mount of Olives is much higher, but you come down to Mount of Olives, you're going up to Jerusalem. That was his daily pattern. During this week, he'd go to Jerusalem, and I imagine taught, and maybe got himself into more trouble, and then late in the day, he'd walk back up to Mount of Olives and go a little bit farther to Bethany. This particular night, as you know from a couple weeks ago, he's at Martha and Mary and Lazarus' house. And so the rest of the rhythm. So hard spiritual work during the day, and then come back for respite, relaxing in this crazy situation that's going on at Lazarus' house, where Martha's serving and she's grumbling, and Mary is putting perfume on Jesus' feet and scandalizing everybody there, and they're speechless. And Judas is the only one who's making any sense, and speaks up and says, "This is not wise, this is not practical, it's not good." All good things. And here's Jesus. Right? That, for me, this just brings out the humanity of all the divine things that are happening. This is such a human piece. And I don't know if he goes back to the same house every night. My guess is yes, because that's where he had a place to stay. It was close. And so every day repeats the rhythm. Down in the city, teaching, doing what he's been warning his friends would cause his death. And then making that 3, 4, 5 mile hike back up, down to Bethany, his friend's house, and getting more encouragement each night. Jesus, have you thought it through? Is this really, you think, what's best? Just think of how many more people you could reach with more time. More people hearing your voice and seeing what you can do. It all makes sense. But he didn't. And so we look a little bit extra at Mary tonight, who did the crazy thing, who you could say maybe was all in. All the care, all the things that make sense were kind of, for the moment, thrown out the window, and I'm all in. I'm jumping off the diving board in the pool. There's no going back. And that's where she was. And I think about that in terms of us during this week, during this particular time period in Lent, of where we are in this drama, this everyday back and forth between doing these things that Jesus did versus coming back and taking a break from it and reassessing it, and sometimes getting encouragement, sometimes not being encouraged to follow Jesus because sometimes it's just not practical. It doesn't make sense. It's too vulnerable, too tender, too self-sacrificing, and so impractical. And, it's no mistake that our Old Testament lesson was paired for this night, our gospel lesson, because the church has claimed this passage as its own. From the prophet Isaiah, these servant songs, we believe, talk about Jesus. And God's chosen. God's Spirit is upon you. He's going to bring justice, justice, justice. So 3 times in the first part of it, justice, justice, justice. Justice to the nations, justice, justice, and then justice to the whole earth. But what are the characteristics of that? Well, this passage, he will not cry, lift up his voice, or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break. And a burning wick he will not quench, ours says, but in the old days, snuff. And it's not talking about reeds and wicks. He's talking about people, about the vulnerable. That's what God's servant will do. He will not break the bruised, and he will not snuff out the dimly burning, the weaker ones. And again, it's not very practical. It doesn't put money in the coffers, which is what Judas was concerned with. It's a concern, but I guess sometimes not so. And not characteristic of Jesus, who we gather tonight to ponder the direction he's taking on this Monday night to the cross. And nothing is getting him off that track. Even though it would make all kinds of sense. He's so all shades of practical to be off that path, to be that self-sacrificing, that all in. Because it's Jesus who really jumped off that board and took nothing with him, but gave it all. So we, as we begin our journey on these weekdays, we think about if we're all in, and maybe even more accurate, how do I need to drop some more of the things that I'm working to carry with me that are all practical, necessary, so that I'm all